Hello everyone, welcome back to another Try and Fly, where I'm going to try a new add-on I just bought and just have a look at it and see what I can do, if I understand it without reading a lot of documentation, if it is a difficult airplane to master or not. So that's the kind of questions I answer for myself, and you're going to watch me. And it's in the usual try and fly pattern. Also something that I do the same with all aircraft I'm testing. And no, this is not a tutorial. You may get some information out of what I'm doing here, but this is not intended to be a tutorial, and this is not about professionalism to the highest degree. This is just me having bought this really beautiful plane called the Carenado Fokker 50 and trying to get to grips with it. Why am I pondering so much about that? I just recently got a very nasty comment, a chain of comments by an individual who thinks that I should know about what I'm showing in these videos, and I should not waste everybody's time by just doing things that I have absolutely no idea about and no clue, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm just making it clear from the start, if you're that kind of person, if you expect something polished and professional and down to the lowest detail, you're not going to get that here, unfortunately. So I hope you will have some fun with this video anyway, but this is not what this video is about. Okay. It's sometimes really weird what kind of people and what kind of interaction you have with some people out there. Luckily, the majority of the community and of my community here is different. That's a good thing. So I'm not getting myself being put off just by someone or something like that. But yeah, from time to time I get reminded that not everything is great and super duper here on the tube, you know. So, but let's continue. So this is the Fokker 50. It has just came out. It's a Carenado, and because it is a Carenado, it is actually a beautiful plane. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Now, it is a Carenado, so I can tell you already, because I've done some first kind of probes before I started here, and I've watched some videos and I had a quick look around, and yeah, there are the odd little thingies we might encounter, and yeah, it's just the way they are, and there are a lot of simplifications. One of which is the documentation. I'm just going to show you two samples of the documentation we get. For example, there's the Fms menu, or the Fms manual, which basically shows some screenshots of the FMS. It doesn't really give a lot of detailed information. A lot of the pages are read-only, but you can enter a flight plan. You can actually enter arrivals and departures, and yeah, so all the basic functionality is there. 4,768 nautical miles. That might be a little bit there might be a little mistake here in this flight plan, I would say. Yeah, so it is a very basic thing, very basic thing. You can't do much in this FMC, but it allows you to theoretically define your flight plans, and not only that, it has actually a Navigraph database, or at least it would use Navigraph database. Also, we think. I'm not sure. I have updated my Navigraph database to the latest cycle, and I didn't get this screen although I was supposed to get it according to the documentation. So I'm not 100% sure if that is actually active or not. Fact is though, we do have some kind of database and we can do sits and stars, which is good. Now the other main piece of documentation is the normal procedures. They give you kind of this flow, or yeah, I suppose that's the flow. You start on the side somehow, and then from top to bottom. Yeah, so that's the flows. And then there are here these fax copies of checklists. Yep. Couple of pages. It's not very much actually. There is no further detail. Believe me, there isn't anything more detailed than what you just see here. There's an emergency checklist. There are some tables, so 1 or 2 pages with tables or for speeds and stuff. So I took from that roughly, we're going to take off with roughly about 110, 120 knots, something like that in the area. And yeah, that's about it. So not that untypical for Carenado. You can't really expect an awful lot of documentation with these guys. That's just a fact. That's just the way it is. Let's see if we can get along with this aircraft anyway. So I'm supposed to be in a cold and dark cockpit. It's cold, it's dark, it's not quiet, because there's this thing still producing noise. I'm not sure what it is. I haven't yet found a switch with which to deactivate it, so it's not exactly cold and dark. But yeah, that's what it looks like. It is a very nice cockpit. I think it is principally the nicest Fokker 50 we ever had in flight simulation. At least my personal opinion. And yeah, because it is a Carenado, you can bet that the whole graphical stuff is perfect. And that's what this is here. It is perfect. It's really looking good. The only little gripe I have with this is depending on your render settings and your display settings. I had render settings where the writing almost disappeared entirely. It was very hard to read. But even here, it is okay, because I changed the renderers in order to show you this aircraft in a more favorable light, in brackets. So it's okay, but it's not exactly, yeah. So I had to look twice, and the cockpit, and that's not the fault of Carenado. It's because the instruments are so small. It can be hard to read. So I have a hard time here to read values because they're very small. But then again, that's just what the aircraft is like. Now Carenado has also created their way of doing mouse input, and that is that we use clicks left and right key and scroll wheel. Some buttons only support scroll wheel. I will show you in a moment. Others you can use the mouse keys, but unfortunately they haven't really done it intuitively, because what happens is if you want to turn to the left, you have to actually use the right mouse button, and if you want to turn to the right, you have to use the left mouse button. And I'm sorry, but I keep getting it wrong. It's somehow not intuitive, and I have other add-ons also in X-Plane 11 where you can use the scroll wheel without the zoom going back and forth. So what I had to do actually is I had to disable the zoom, at least here in the main panel, because what happens is if you use the scroll wheel, yeah, you start zooming in and out, which is not very good. Well, which is just, yeah, it's not very practical, let's say. You can, with a lot of the buttons, you can use the right and the left mouse key, but you see, I'm pressing the right key, nothing works. When I press the left key, it goes to the right. I guess what they did is that the left mouse key is increase, and in other panels, if you wouldn't have the right mouse key, that's okay, because you could kind of figure it. But in this case, it would have been really better if they would have used right and left with the direction of how you turn the buttons. Well, it's not that big now, but I'm just saying, so I keep getting it wrong a lot, because it's just not intuitive and it just doesn't get into my fingers. You know, I see a button, I want to move it to the right, and I just use the right mouse button. I can't help myself. So only when I realize that I've gone the wrong way or that nothing moves, then I remember and I use the other mouse key. Okay, so that's another small thing which is a bit unfortunate. That could have been solved better. Okay. Right, apart from that, yeah, it looks really nice. Not everything is coded, quite obviously, so you can't open the windows, for example. You can open doors, though. There's actually quite a few doors. And I would say, why don't we start bringing this aircraft up? So I turn on the battery, and there is an external power switch, and it took me quite long. Oh yeah, there's an overhead panel documentation too, where they just have a graphics and they have these sections, and then they have very few explanations. Here's an interesting thing. You can activate the external power, but it's on, but it's actually, well, in theory it's actually not used because it's not available, or I'm not sure, because what happens is the moment I move this thing into this position, and I thought that this is a switch that's used by the amp meter and voltmeter or so, it shows 0, but the avail light comes on here, the external power, which makes me think that we now have external power on the bus, probably. Yeah, that's these small little things, you know, with Carenado. What have I done now? I think I accidentally triggered the test. Aha. So if you press here, you do the light test. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then you can turn it off again. So we have, and it's extremely small. It's really small. And so PAX door is open, doors are open, left and right engine oil. I can't see anything regarding the external power, so I'm going to switch this again and see, has there anything come on regarding the external power? No. So probably we do have external power, but there's no indication that I can see. Okay, now there are actually a number of 2D windows, and if you go to vehicle, we are in prepared version 4. So you have your instrument panels in the vehicle section, and you can see an EADI EHSI. This actually can be called by clicking here, and it brings up the displays. You can place them here. There is some way of resizing it. You just have to come from the left end, so you can make it a little bit smaller, because they take a lot of real estate here on the screen in the initial dimensions, but I think this way it's actually not bad. So this is a good thing to have, especially because look here, I have real difficulties seeing the flight director on this. It may be my old eyes, I don't know, but for me it is difficult to see. So yeah, so that this way it is actually quite nice. Now I've seen some differences between this display and this display, especially in the navigation. I can show you that later. But all in all, I think it is a good a good way of having your displays here. I mean, they all come together, so you can't separate them, but that's okay. It's still quite handy and quite useful. Yeah, I could even make them a little bit smaller again. So yeah, that's looking good. Right. Because here I can see the flight director much better than I can see it here. Somehow the brightness and the kind of bloom effect, which comes probably from reflections or so, I don't know, makes this very hard to see. Okay. What else? We have more windows. Vehicle, instrument panel. So, for example, there's the Autopilot Select panel. Now, the Autopilot Select panel, which is this thing up here. And they have actually, I haven't seen any description of that thing. So, with some of these, I have to kind of guess what they do. So, for example, standby. No idea what that's doing. Nav is clear. BC is clear. V-app. Vertical app approach or what? I don't know. LNAV. Altitude select, altitude, glide slope, vertical speed, and IAS. And we shall try these modes later on when we are in the air. There seem to be two commands, sort of two autopilots that you can click, either the right one for the first officer or the left one for me. And here you can enter altitude. The thing is, in this 2D panel you can actually use the mouse keys. In the other panel I was not able to use the mouse key. Somehow I wasn't able. Oh, now here it is. Yeah, okay. On my first trials I just couldn't find the position where this would work, so I needed to use the... See, I'm clicking here all the time and I can't get it to work. So there is a very, very small area where the click spots are. What always works is the mouse scroll wheel. But for that you need to switch off your scroll wheel zooming, because otherwise you'll be all over the place. Now, for some reason, and I haven't yet found out what the rules are, this thing is always on 1000 steps. And I have yet to find a way to switch this to 100 feet so that I can put in some in-between altitude. Haven't found it yet, but I'm pretty sure that is possible somehow. The next thing is this here. So, whoops, I forgot I don't have a zoom. Well, actually, Shift 2 will bring you up this panel here, and there you have all the things that you can do here with the display. So you can do a full arc, a full circle, or an arc. This is the arc mode. Okay, you can go into map mode, but the map is always like the arc. Okay, and this is where also the route will be displayed, but I don't seem to be able to declutter the screen, so we always get everything displayed. So if you choose a zoom level, and now comes the next thing, it took me an age to find out where you actually change the zoom level of the display. I finally found it, and it's basically these two buttons here in the weather radar panel, which is nicely located in this 2D panel, but it's not so intuitively located on the real thing, because it's actually here. So the setup of the displays you do here, and the zoom you have to do here, because you're basically zooming in and out the weather radar display. Now, we seem to have something like a weather radar, but I'm not even sure if it really is working. So, I don't know. So there's a test mode, and if it would be working, I will think that we are going to see some test pattern, but I can't really see this. So I don't think that the weather radar is working. Now, I might be wrong, but that's what I think. Looking at these panels here, so this is the engine kind of control panel, or it's actually the prop control, I think, which I'm guessing, but it's probably controlling the RPM by changing the propeller blades. And you do actually have different modes. There's the takeoff mode, this is the go around mode, this is the flex mode, and for that you would actually enter a flex temperature. Then there's a climb mode, a cruise mode, and a maximum climb thrust. And I think the expectation is that you switch this during flights phases, you switch this to the appropriate setting. And I'm guessing again, because I've never been pilot in a Fokker 50, you probably have to bring your throttle levers, your power levers, to this position, which is the TO position, and it would then kind of control your props accordingly. So I'm not quite sure what that does. It could be the autopilot standby. Standby possibly means that we are disabling it, at least for short. Not sure what that button is, if that is actually a button. Well, yeah, so that's that. Here's the autopilot, the yaw damper engage. Autopilot is engaged here, yaw damper is engaged here, and that panel, and that's why they probably have put it so nicely into one big 2D panel, is down here. So you're all over the place when it comes to autopilot functions and display and de-display things. Okay, so in order, especially at the beginning, to find your way around this much easier, you can call up this with Shift 2. They also have some ground speed, sort of a speed setting here, track to go and ground speed. What the FD command does, I'm not sure, but it seemed to be turning off the autopilot, put it in standby. It's probably the switch that turns on or off the flight directors, I would say. The FMS, yeah, I'm guessing, but my guess is that it means that the autopilot would follow the flight management system route. Guessing here. Okay, we'll find out. NAV1 and NAV2 would be to slave. Is it the autopilot or is it maybe just a display? I can't tell you. To NAV1 or NAV2. And then you can also show bearings. So for example, you can show the bearings from VOR1, from the ADF1, or from FMS. My guessing is if we are flying an FMS route, we probably have to put this here. And I could actually bring up VOR2. If we have reception, we should see something. This is the brightness of your displays. So I'm going to tone it down a little bit, and actually when we do it less bright, but there's only this step here. The steps are, it's off, this step, a slightly higher step, and an even more unreadable step. So if I bring it down again to here, then I can see the flight director bars a bit better. A little bit dark here on those displays, but that's okay, maybe for the night. And the same thing we have here. So you can, if you hit the click spot, actually, yeah, here it is. Right. Theoretically, it has two things. It can tone down the weather radar display, dim it or something, but I don't think we have one. So this is probably not going to be used. Then Shift 3 is, well, you can put in a tow car and put static elements on, or in this case I've probably turned them off, or maybe not. Yeah, do we need the park brake maybe? Ah, that's it. So if I put the park brake on, then we also have these elements. I see. That opens the passenger doors. This opens the service doors, but you can also use the Shift E1, 2, and 3. Shift E2, Shift E3, and I'm not sure if Shift E4 is there. You can change the flight director to V-bar or cross. I prefer the cross, but that's up to you, what you want. And if you have the Flight 1 GTN 750, which I don't have yet for P3D version 4, you must have it installed, obviously. Then you can actually activate it here. Okay, I have activated this option, but I just remembered that my Flight 1 GTN only works in prepared version 3 because it's a 32-bit version. Therefore, I can't use it yet, and it's actually not that cheap to get a V4 compatible because they have issued a new release. It actually packs the 650 and the 750 into one packet now, and as the owner of one of the previous products, you do get a good reduction, but it still costs an amount of money, and that means again I need to spend money before I can use functionality that I used to have in prepared version 3. That's just the way it is with the simulator. And yeah. By the way, I've also discovered that there is a bit of a Shift 3 is supposed to be the FMS window, so they've done a little bit of a naming boo-boo with how they named the windows in the panel configuration. So this was supposed to be the FMC or the FMS, but it is actually the what is it actually? I don't know. And the info could that be the info? It's not really info either. And the info, which is then actually the FMS. So there's a bit of a mismatch between window titles and actual 2D windows. But with Shift 5, you can open and close your FMC. Alright. And if you have activated the Flight 1, you do get this option here with the 750. You can also call it up as a separate window. The panel manager, by the way, belongs to prepared. This has nothing to do with the GTN. There with the Fokker 50. Now, in order to get this thing working, we need to click on the power dim button. That turns it on, and then they also put in the accept, which is, yeah, fine. Let me do that again. Data. Trying to get to that page, to that initial page. Menu, list, VNAV. I guess once you're out of this, you probably won't be able to get back. So if I turn it on, no, I don't go back. Ah well, I forgot to have a look at the information it gives us when it fires up. But it looks like I can't get back to that. Right, so you can see that most of these pages do not come. So there's nothing here in the data. The few comes, it's 5 pages, but it's actually information only. That means you can scroll through this, but there's nothing you can do. You cannot change anything. It's in pounds, by the way, and I haven't really been able to change this. So the tune page doesn't work, the nav page doesn't work. The direct to does work, but you need a flight plan for it, or enter the waypoint directly. The flight plan works, the VNAV doesn't work, the list, I don't think it worked, but I'm not sure. And the menu comes when it always brings up the flight plan menu, so it's basically a particular. And the perf page again is information only. There's nothing you can change here, so it is very, very basic, very basic. Let's get the flight plan entered. So we're going to fly from Echo Delta. Yeah, don't forget, you need to click first Then you enter the airport. You need to click again. In our case, we are flying back to the same airport. You have started now a flight plan. What you could do now is that you click here and you say SONAP. I hope I got that right. Well, we shall see. Oh no, was it that one? See. Oops. So how did that work? Next page? Ah, we need to go to the next page. Yeah, that was it. Alright, so I could now enter one waypoint by clicking here, then saying SONAP. Enter. Alright. For some reason we don't have the destination airport. Let's see if that comes. Depart. EDLV, arrive EDLV, so that looks okay. This is a kind of flight plan summary. Okay, and it wants us to fly at 28,000 feet. I don't think so. But anyway, what we want to do is I go to menu, I go to depart. There's EDLV, that's fine. So I'm now going to click here and I will select runway 27 by saying 2. And I'm going to select Sony 3 Sierra by selecting 2 again. There is no transition, so it stays with 0. Now we'll look at the flight plan. Next page. Next page. Previous page. So this is... here it is. Okay. Not sure why that went like this, but anyway. Echo Delta Lima Victor 200, 210, 201, 204. And then SONAP. And now we can add a waypoint. And if I am correct, I have to place it here. By the way, here you can also delete things. So let's put in SOP2 because I think you can enter it. Yeah, that's what it does. So you click on the position you want to add a waypoint. You enter the name of the waypoint. It will then move everything below that down, and you have a new waypoint. Obviously with the not exactly the right altitude. And if you want to delete something, you click here. What happens with info? It gives you the info. So you click here, and you could press del, and when you press del, you get rid of it again. We don't want to get rid of it. Actually, what we want to do is we need to go to menu again, and go to arrive, EDLV, click, SOP to 1 whiskey, so 2, enter. There's no transition, and here comes now the problem. There is actually no approach, so I can't select the ILS approach. Not sure if this is an error in the database, but that is a bit of a that's not so good, let's say. So what we can see is we have LAA, and then we have EDLV, and I can't actually tell it what runway to use, but we're going to now manually amend this flight plan in the way we usually have it. So it's remat. Click here. I enter remat. Enter. And LAA we're going to delete. Click here. Gone. Because we're not flying the normal approach. And let's see. The altitudes are completely off, but I'm also not able to really enter. So probably what I could do is I could probably enter. Can I or can I not? Doesn't look like it. No. So distance, no, like I don't seem to be able to change. Yo. So something where I can enter the altitude. I haven't found it yet. Next. No, there's nothing here. Well, there's a direct to, so you can always put in a direct to. Now the point is that when you enter, at least I know this from other FMCs, if you enter a waypoint, you need to kind of tell it now that the next waypoint is Lima Victor 200, and I don't think it knows that yet. See, it actually has EDLV as the next active waypoint. By the way, there is no VNAV. There may be a VNAV button, I think, on the Autopilot, but it is definitely... Is there? I'm not even sure that there is, but there's definitely no VNAV functionality, so it doesn't really matter what altitudes we have in here, apart from information, for information purposes. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use direct to. I enter 2, enter, and that means we're now going to intercept Lima Victor 200, and we need to have this so that when we take off, it will try and intercept this. At least that's me thinking that what we have to do. And that's about it with the flight plan. I don't think you can do much more. So we have some form of flight plan, and when we look at the display, we can't really see anything. And that's what I said before. This display and this display somehow are not quite the same. They do look different. And and that is probably because of the dimensions. So if I make them much bigger, I can actually see more. Yeah. But then I take away a lot of the real estate, so it's only partially helpful, I have to say. Okay, let's stay like this, because I'm more interested in the ADI than in the navigation display. Right, now let's put the heading on 272. Where can we see this? Where can we see where the heading is? So there's a very small indication, but yeah, let's see, we can change to this mode. That should help us see the I see. Okay, so we can put this onto 272. The same we're going to do with course. Which you also can see at the top left of the navigation display. I'm going to put this into 272. Okay. Next thing is the ILS is 1110.7. And how do I switch those? So there must be a way to switch those. Let's see. So how do I get them switched? Yeah, right. Like this? Ah, okay. Here. You have to press on this button. Okay. And while we're at it, we can bring in 115.5, which is the DME. And yep. Let's hope that we have reception. Okay. What else do we need to do? We could actually go for some flex temperature. So we have about 15 degrees in the true air temperature. I could put this up to 25. We can try and see what happens. Yeah. What else? Oh, how do I get the zoom back? Ah, okay. Yeah, that's okay. I think I am done. So let's now go to the top and start with some basic items. So the first thing I think we can do. Let's start Linda, by the way. Because that gives me actually my Cytec switches. Let's see if those work. Doesn't look like it. So all of these switches don't seem to be standard FSX. So I have to do them manually. Alright, so let's try and find out where the nav light is. And you can see already that the writing is so small. I mean, that is probably realistic, but it is really very, very, very small. Let's put on the seat belts, and we put the non-smoking to on. What's the storm light doing? Don't know. So anti-collision light. I'm going to. Which one is that? Oh, that's the nav light. So anti-collision light. Oh well, we might as well turn it on. It doesn't matter. So, what else do we need to do? We need to activate the fuel pumps, and we are going to. So what's that? That's the generators. I'm going to turn them on, I think. I'm just guessing here. Okay. We need. Well, we don't really want recirculating fans and packs while we're starting, I guess. Don't know what economy does. So that's probably the engine bleeds. So we have got them off. So we turn off the engine bleeds. Okay. And we're activating the engine starter, and we're going to see if we can get a pushback here. Request for pushback and departure. Straight pushback, manual stop, max 100 meter. Yes, I want to start the engine because we don't have an APU. Therefore, I will probably have to start the aircraft while we're still on the fuel on the external power, and we should close the doors.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Okay, so we're on the hook. So let's start engine number 2, and just remember, either use the scroll wheel, or you have to use the left key, mouse key, to get number 1 started. No, in this case they have done it. Oh. This seems to be the only switch where they've done it the other way around. Oh. Okay, I have to remember that. Oh, by the way, in order for that to start up, you need to actually open the mixture, and you have to bring it into the start position. I'm not sure if you have to do this before, but as I say, I'm guessing. I'm not an expert on. So yeah, here they actually have done it the way I would like it to be, and here they haven't. Okay. The engine start is very... Oh, why are we... Oops. The engine start is very uncomplicated. Oh, they want us to release the parking brake, which, by the way, is here, in case you're looking for it. So where are they pushing us? Why are you pushing us this way? Weird. Okay. So, that looks like we can put out the flaps into position 5. And I think I'm going to stop the pushback. Stop here and complete. Thank you. I should have turned on the beacon, I suppose. Just be careful where you walk here with these propellers turning. So, do you want me to set the parking brake? Okay. Yes, it is set. Okay, that means we can now turn off the external power. Aha, so this switch makes it available, it connects it, the on then makes it on the bus or something, although we can't really see that up here. Okay. So let's turn on the bleeds and the pumps, the packs, and I'm going to turn off the ignition and the engine starter. We're going to turn on the window heat on low. What else can we do? Compass, DG, so none of those I think are relevant, I'm guessing, but there's the hydraulic pumps, so we should have hydraulic power now. That's probably the emergency lights or something, although it doesn't really say anything here on this panel. It's probably the secret button that all pilots know what they are, just us we are wondering. Pressure control, do we need to do anything here? I don't know. Pressure control. Then, yeah, so we have the taxi light, which I'm going to turn on right now. And we have the flap set, and the trim is actually in this yellowish green area, so I think that's okay. What about these fellas here? Are they gone? No, they're not. Do you not want to let us go, please? My dear? Okay, GSX, that's fine. Come on. Abort the pushback. Go away. So. Right. Autopilot wise, we need to... what do we need to do? What's this yellow thing here? It's very hard to read. Very hard to read. Low pitch. Oh yeah. That's no surprise. That's because we have not yet moved, so I've moved now the mixture things up. Oh, what is this? Okay. I moved them both up. That means that in theory the low pitch should probably go out. So not sure what it's trying to do here. Yeah. Anyway, let's try and taxi to the runway. So, parking brake is off, and I'm going to carefully apply some power. And off we go. So in the meantime, I'm going to set LNAV, and interestingly, the moment you press the LNAV button, the autopilot comes on. That's a bit weird. I wouldn't have expected that. I'm not sure if that is realistic. I just would not have expected that the autopilot comes on automatically with some mode, and we can already see how the oops, I should probably watch where we are going. Yeah, I thought so. It's one of those aircraft that doesn't stay on the line. You just nicely follow the yellow line, okay? Don't go wandering off while I'm trying to get through here. So, what about the pressure? I used the B key, 1013, standard weather. Just stay straight. What else have we got here? So we've got the flex temperature, we've got the flaps, and we've got LNAV activated, and well, altitude wise, I don't know, I'm going to probably then activate something like vertical speed or IAS mode. So let's quickly stop here, and so where's the transponder? Transponder, oh no, I should have probably not used the GTN. I have to deinstall that again. What did I want to do? we're going to use 2000 and we're going to put it on. Probably TARA, but to tell you the truth, I can't read this. Okay. And we're going to turn on the lights. And what about the strobes? Where do we put on the strobes in this thing? Are there actually strobes? Let's see. So we've got the anti-collision. What's the storm light? What exactly is that? On. No, I don't think that storm lights is the strobes. So I suppose it might not have one. At least I can't see one. What's this? What's this here? Oh, that's the windshield wipers. I see. Okay. So storm is not it. Anti-collision light we have on. The nav light we have on. The seat belts and stuff. The taxi lights on. The landing lights are on. I suppose that seems to be all I have as options here. So I'm releasing the parking brake. And we're going to line up now. Does that look from an alignment point of view? Not too bad. Okay, so now comes the big question. La grande question. Where do I need to put the throttle levers? I'm going to put it forward into this position here. And off we go. So about 100 and something, and I'm pulling rotate. Yep, positive rate, gear coming up, and I'm going to follow the flight director. Although I'm a little bit surprised, and we seem to have switched again. Yeah, so let's go back to the flight plan. Yeah, it almost looks like we are slightly off the course because normally we should have had a direct line, but I'm going to follow now the flight director. We should probably be, according to this, we should be a bit higher with the pitch. And it has switched. This is hardly to be seen, but see, it has now switched to the second leg, and I'm going to now activate the autopilot. And I'm going to activate IAS mode. Which should hold the speed we're with, which is probably a little bit on the low side. Well, it is supposed to hold the speed we have just selected. And that is strange, to say the least. Oh, and we need to apply alt-cell, because otherwise we're not going to stop at 5,000 feet. It's one of those aircraft, and you need to constantly watch your speed, because this is not the type of aircraft that allows you to have an auto throttle to do everything for you. Okay. So we seem to be following nicely, looking good so far, but there's something wrong, because this leg should now be pink or magenta, but it isn't. Why is it not magenta? Because we're still looking for the other leg. Oh god, that's not good. 4 enter. See, it should have done that. And we seem to be slightly off the course line here, at least according to the display. So this is not, this is somehow, this is weird. And we've reached 5,000. Well, we have actually overshot 5,000. We're probably now going back. Let's bring in the flaps. Because now we're accelerating quite a bit. I'm going to now change the thrust rating to cruise. And you can see how the props or the RPM are changed accordingly. So the autopilot seems to be following the course nicely, but the FMC doesn't. So the FMC doesn't seem to recognize that we have reached a waypoint, which means that again I need to use the direct to and I'm not sure if this is just a shoddy display or what we seem to be beside the course line. This is not exactly good. Yeah, look at this. It looks like we are flying beside the... And if that's the case, maybe that's the reason why it doesn't switch, because we are not bang on the waypoints. That could be a reason why it can't detect the change. Anyway, how we're looking with the speed is looking okay. We are now on 5,000. We are following the course, even if the FMC doesn't understand that we are already at the next level. .32 miles. The speed remains stable, so the flaps are in. There's no auto brake or anything like that here. Yeah, it's looking okay. Let's have a quick look outside. Oops. Oh, and I actually remember I should have raised the priority of this flight simulator. I forgot to do that because it's a manual task. I need to do it every single time, because what you can see here is the blurry textures. That's Orbix for you. But there is a trick how to get this to work, and it's basically setting the priority of prepared to high in the task manager, and that will help for more threads to start loading the scenery. And you can already see how this has worked actually, because now the textures are getting crisp again. I only have that with Orbix, and since I have Orbix now basically everywhere, I have fuzzy textures unless I do this trick I just showed you. You get used to it over time. So this is Germany North, I think, from Orbix, and the Europe Open Land class, and obviously the FTX Global. In prepared version 4 I can actually activate and vectors. So I got, in the last sale, I kind of stocked up on Europe, and I got all the Europe land classes and area sceneries in order to kind of ramp up my European experience. It's okay. It looks okay. It looks better than the standard, I have to say. So let's check where we are. I think we need to turn soon. Indeed, and as you can see, we are slightly beside the course line according to this display. And I'm pretty sure we're going to start turning because the autopilot nicely follows the course, at least that works. But the FMC, I don't think the FMC considers itself close enough, so it looks like it's not switching the legs because we have never come close enough to the waypoint, whatever the distance is that it would need to switch. There you go. Now it's turning, but you can see it hasn't switched the magenta line and will not do so unless I go here and again do that thing. Now that can be a little bit imagine you have to do this on a long flight. I really need to figure out. I have been on the Fokker forum, see if there are any kind of weird things that people report, but this thing is so new that I haven't really found anything. But I guess that could be already something I can tell them. Yeah. Okay. This aircraft nicely follows the path up to Sonep. There's no shortcutting like in X-Plane sometimes. So I can rely that this aircraft will follow the route by the book, although it doesn't really display it properly. The whole FMC thing is extremely simplified. Now, if you have the GTN, and I'm most likely going to get myself the 64-bit, going to pay the price for it and have it, because that will extend a little bit the capabilities, because this is so simplified here, so it will help navigating with this aircraft. So while we are flying here, so here's the rudder trim. Can have a look at this. So this is the lighting. Now why don't we have a quick look at what this thing looks in. No, that's wrong. What this thing looks in the dark. I use a time preview for this, so I'm going to put us here now into the night. Now this is the unfortunately pretty bright lighting with the instruments. Now one reason why this is so kind of blinding is probably because of my render settings, because I have some night settings for lights and bloom so that they look a bit more realistic. I also have reduced the brightness at night, because usually in prepared the night looks like a moonlit full moon sort of bright thing, and that is not realistic, because usually at night when you look out you see basically nothing apart from the lights on the ground. But this is actually quite yeah. Thing is, you can turn this off, but then your instruments don't show. I mean the relevant ones, altitude and so on. I have to find out if there is a way of adjusting this a little bit. The other thing I can do is I can turn on the lights. They are not as blinding, but you can see that I actually don't have instrument lights on, and I haven't found another switch that would, at least I wasn't able to find one. So you can look at these switches here. This is the top here, so this covers this. Then we have the glare shield that you can lighten up. That's that part here. Then we have the FMC. both FMCs. And then we have something where the keys, now they work, so that's this part. And then there's something I can't even read. It's very hard to actually read things here. So the labels are only readable when you really go close. And I'm still trying to figure out what this is, because it says something like dim, an, bright, and rust. Yeah, go figure. I have no idea what that is. And FDK flood. So we know what that is. That's the one where it is really very, very bright. Okay. I don't know if there's another option to just have the instrument lights on, because that's really what I need for an approach in the dark. This is far too, the other thing is far too bright, you know, because you have difficulties then looking out. This is actually better than the other option. Oh yeah, and I'm not sure that do we have full moon, or where does that reflection or light thing come from? But that's prepared. That's not the aircraft. So we have been reaching Sonab. We're now turning full turn. And I'm still trying to actually figure out how this IAS mode, because I don't think the IAS mode worked. And for the IAS mode to work, you would actually define a speed. So for one, I have actually no button where I can set the speed. So I'm guessing that in theory it should take the speed we are just having on, but there's no bug that would move there in order to show us that. You can now see how he's trying to intercept. I'm not sure if he's intercepting the line. I think he's flying towards the waypoint, but because again it still doesn't know. Yeah. Tell you guys that this is so Carenado. It's the things like that are typical for Carenado. I don't know, like I have these kind of little idiosyncrasies with a lot of the planes. So this, it's not that it surprises me awfully. You don't get system deep and fully super duper performing navigation and stuff like that with Carenado. There always is some issue, and that's one of them. Okay, now I would like to go to 2600, but as you can see I can only go in 1000s, and I haven't yet found a switch with which I can do differently. Let's see, this is 1000, this is 1000, 1000, 1000, 1000, yeah. Yeah, no idea how we're going to get 2,600 feet into this. Yeah, unfortunately my hardware does not work with this bird at all. That means I need to try and find a way around that. So I can't set the altitude with my hardware. Well, anyway, let's go back to the dark, to the bright. And yeah, I'm going to now activate the IAS mode and have a look. So I'm going down to 3000 because I have no choice. I'm going to activate the IAS mode and the altitude select. Now what is IS doing? So it's starting to climb. And now I'm going to reduce the power. Which means that in theory we should get slower, therefore we should go down and start descending. So we do. So that's working. Uh-oh. What was that? Okay, so we're approaching sub 2 now, although this is absolutely unreadable. But here it is a bit better. So we're approaching sub 2. And I think I'm going to take a bit of more power now back and try and increase the vertical speed. Now we seem to have some loading going on. So I think I'm now in flight idle. Altitude select 3000. Now I need to add power because otherwise we're going to slow down, and I don't yet want to slow down. So we're now turning towards remat. We're on 3000, and I wonder actually we're going to see the localizer and the glide slope. And the thing is, with remat, 3000 is actually a little bit too high, but I don't really want to go to 2000, if you know what I mean. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn on IS mode again, take away power, and it always starts climbing in IS mode first, it seems. I'm going to set this to 2000, but I'm going to descend now through to 2600, and then I'm going to or activate the altitude mode again so that we stay on 2600. I have no other choice, I suppose. So 2700, 2600 altitude mode. I'm going to apply power again. And we're now almost at remat. And I'm now going to arm the glide slope, and I'm going to turn off LNAV. And see that? You turn off the autopilot when you do that. So now I've activated glide slope, and I think we need to get slower now. I activated glide slope and nav. So as soon as the localizer moves in, which should happen now any moment, I hope, we should start to turn. And we're getting a bit faster, so I'm going to reduce this throttle now and start bringing out the flaps. So localizer is not yet moving. Glide slope, we are definitely under the glide slope. And we are moving. But what exactly is it that we are actually moving here? It's not the localizer. The glide slope is coming in, but we are not. There's something wrong. See this? There's something wrong. Shit. So let's active. Oh, do I need to? Oh, possibly I need to actually tell it to use nav1. That could be it. Yeah. I probably need to tell it to intercept nav1 and glide slope. Localizer is captured. Ah, okay, that was it. I hadn't had the. Ooh, careful. Flaps 1. I've lost it a little bit with the speed again. So we are in quite a pitch up here. Glide slope is captured. I think at least it's green. And we're going to bring out the gears. We're still slightly busy. We're slightly left of the localizer. Oh god, we're getting too fast again. No. Oh god, what is this thing doing here? God. In German we would call that Schiffschaukel.
Think rate. Think rate.
What are
Think
you
rate.
doing?
Think rate. Glide slope. Glide slope.
Okay.
Glide slope. Think rate.
My aircraft.
Glide slope. Glide slope.
Yeah, okay.
Glide slope. Glide slope. Glide slope.
We are far too
Glide
fast,
slope.
so we need to
Glide slope.
come up a bit
Glide slope.
and also reduce the speed. Now I need to trim it down. This is quite a mess. So the glide slope intercept capabilities are somewhat questionable. I mean, it was trying to follow the glide slope, but it kept overdoing it, you know, in both directions.
Glide slope. Glide slope.
Yes,
Glide
yes, yes.
Glide
It's
slope.
okay.
Glide slope. Glide slope. Glide.
Okay.
Too low. Flaps. Too low. Flaps.
Why I have full
Too
flaps?
low. Flaps.
What are you talking about?
Too low. Flaps. Too low. Flaps.
Don't tell me.
Too low. Flaps.
Oh,
Too low.
why did
Flaps.
the flaps come out? I
Too
used the
low.
flaps
Flaps.
key. Indeed, we didn't have flaps. That's why we are so fast. Okay. I used my usual keys and somehow they don't seem to have worked. Okay, this is a bit of a long landing. And okay. Right. So I'm on the reverse here. Right. So, yeah. Let's have a look at the flight analysis of this. Instant replay, we're going to do 120. Let's see. Is that enough? Yes, it is.
500.
And we're going to go here at the tower view.
Flight slope. Flight slope. Flight slope. Flight slope. Flight slope. Flight slope. Flight. Too low. Flaps. Too low. Flaps.
Indeed, so I
Too
have to
low,
remember that
flaps.
my usual flap
Too low. Flaps.
buttons for some
Too
reason
low. Flaps.
do not work. I don't know what happened. Well, I think that wasn't too bad. There aren't any air brakes on this, so you're using your propellers in sort of reverse or beta range or whatever that is called, and obviously the brakes. Right, so here we are. Well, so what do I think? I like it. I mean, the aircraft is nice. I like the Fokker 50 anyway, and I do like what they've done here visually. I'm not overly convinced of the avionics, especially the flight management and the navigation display. Yeah, that is sort of difficult to read. It doesn't really work properly. We had some real issues here with the autopilot trying to intercept the glide slope. And I mean, I really made sure that we are coming under the glide slope and not over it. And it wasn't obviously able to properly, so it was overdoing it. It was overreacting. Not sure what that is. If this is a bug or if this is something that I've done wrong, who knows. Which means that on approach, this is not exactly stable. Yeah. Being able to take over visually is good, but I just imagine what that would be like if we have a category 1 or so approach, and yeah, this autopilot can't even keep us on the glide slope under these quiet and calm conditions. I wonder what happens when there's a bit more. So I guess possibly there are still some things that need to be fixed, or maybe some patch coming out, at least in theory. In praxis, I know Carenado, chances that we are going to see a patch very soon are sort of dim usually. Usually they don't issue patches because they're concentrating on all the other aircraft, so we probably have to live with this behavior for some time, or find ways, or maybe even correct ways to get around that. Still, I think it's a beautiful airplane. The sound is really good. The graphics is good. You do have a usable flight management in a way that it allows you to enter a flight plan, and I have a feeling that from a navigation point of view, this aircraft will probably win with me having the GTN, but even without it, you can basically define your route. It doesn't look nice, it's a bit clunky and so on, but it does work. So I suppose that's okay. And you can probably get some more information about the Fokker 50 from what's that site called? There are some sites. I think if you look for like Fokker 50 training manuals or so, you might be able to find something on the internet. Who knows? Yep. Right. So that's it. The try and fly for the Fokker 50. It wasn't exactly a 100% experience, but I think it was a high 90 something experience, and I'm definitely glad that I have this aircraft, because as I said, I really like these birds. Okay, that's it. Until next time.